Well, I think, number one, at the end of any campaign, you pick and choose the things that work best for you. This is why I'm sure Kamala Harris didn't show up at the Chicago Economic Club Forum this week, or turned down Time Magazine, or didn't show up at the Al Smith dinner last night. And number two, so what? He's doing a ton of stuff, tons of events. He gave an amazing stand-up set last night that had the most epic roasts of the campaign season. I mean, he's doing plenty. He's doing fine. I don't think his campaign has anything to worry about from this reporting this morning. He looks pretty vigorous to me.
All right, guys, so once again, it's time to laugh at the mainstream liberal media, okay? Because the mainstream liberal media and the Democrat Party, they have become a full-blown comedy show, right? Because at this point, they're now just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks in regards to their attacks against Trump. Because they know that Trump is winning. Everybody can see that Trump has the momentum, and Kamala Harris's campaign is sinking fast. So in defense of Kamala Harris, in order to help Kamala Harris out, everything that she comes up with as a line of attack against Trump, they just promote the narrative, they push the narrative, they put it out there as if it's some type of legitimate conversation that we should be having, right? And the latest false narrative conspiracy that the mainstream liberal media is peddling on behalf of Kamala Harris is this idea that President Trump is exhausted.
It has already been a very long campaign season for the man that you saw there, his jaw jutting out in disappointment, Donald Trump. And it's really starting to show, I got to say. I mean, let's, again, to be just human here for a second, relate to a person on stage, their mic doesn't work. Campaigning for president is hard. It's physically and emotionally, psychologically grueling. It's difficult for any candidate. It's particularly got to be really hard for the 78-year-old man who is the oldest major party nominee in U.S. history.
Have you seen him lately? I mean, he is out there. He's given 2.5 hour speeches, just word salads. You have no idea what he's talking about. He's talking about Hannibal Lecter. He's talking about this. He's talking about that. He's swaying to Ave Maria and YMCA for about half an hour. Folks are standing there not sure what's happening. Can you imagine if I did that?
I think those concerns about competency are one of the reasons why one of the defining features of Trump's third campaign is how it's largely been sealed off in this alternate world of safe spaces. Friendly interviews with right-wing outlets, softball podcasts, a town hall that devolved into a bizarre wordless dance recital set to Trump's comfort. Considering all that, it should probably come as a little surprise that Trump has canceled a number of mainstream interviews in the final stretch of the campaign. His team is citing exhaustion. For anyone who's been following along, there's no doubt that Donald Trump really is tired. And again, I get it. As the Harris-Walz campaign noted on social media, quote, an exhausted Trump appeared to fall asleep during his campaign event in Michigan today. At that same event, he even complained about having to campaign.
How about we'll go through it pretty quick, Dale, and then I'm going over to make a little speech in front of 10,000 people. You think this is an easy life I have, right? I go from here, I say, am I finished? They say, no, sir, you have one more speech. Oh, good, where is it? What is it, 20 minutes, 30 minutes away?
He does not look like he's enjoying himself. Now, Donald Trump has always been one of the absolute weirder figures in American public.
Yeah, so what we have here is just comedy at this point, guys. I mean, that's just what it is to me. These are the same people, okay, who had nothing to say about Joe Biden when he ran in 2020 from the basement, right? We all know why Joe Biden was running from the basement is because he was old, right? He was legitimately exhausted. And we saw that exhaustion throughout his whole presidency, okay? Joe Biden wasn't doing any events, right? Lo and behold, he becomes president, and the dude is taking more vacation days than any recent president in history, okay? Liberal media had nothing to say about that. Joe Biden was mentally declining in front of the world for everybody to see, and the mainstream liberal media told us that that was a cheat fate. Right? Don't believe what you're saying. In fact, if you don't believe that Joe Biden is as sharp as he's ever been, then F you. And we all know what happened to Joe Biden, right? He dropped out because he clearly was not mentally fit enough to be in office. Now, again, what I find to be ironic about this, right, coming from Chris Hayes, who is an overweight, low-T male, right, on MSNBC, I don't think he has any room whatsoever to be questioning anybody's unfitness, okay? Considering how this dude is clearly not in shape for anything, mentally or physically, right? So he probably should not be judging, okay? So with that being said, yeah, these are the wild conspiracies that are being promoted in the mainstream level media. And it gets even deeper, right? It gets even deeper, okay? Because now what they're saying is that, well, Trump is not the actual candidate, right? They're not running Trump. Trump is just like a shadow candidate, right? And they actually try to get Trump elected in order to replace him with J.D. Vance. This is what they're saying. These are the conspiracies they're pushing on CNN. Take a look.
He has backed out of 5, by our count, events, interviews, 60 Minutes, CNBC, NBC. He did Fox and Friends instead, it looks like, but he also ditched an NRA event. So it's not even just that he's kind of dodging maybe tough interviews. And the NRA is a very friendly crowd.
Yeah, interviews, but what he's not dodging are actual campaign events. He's had
except for the NRA
he had 21
one, which is a campaign.
He had 21 campaign events last month compared to Vice President Harris 13. That's a significant number. I went on his website today to just see what events he has upcoming over the next 5 days. I counted 8, 9 events where the former president will be. Governor Walz had 7 events last month compared to J.D. Vance's 14 events. So the Trump-Vance ticket, they're out there talking to their voters. Maybe they're skipping a couple of interviews. I think it's less important to sit down with journalists and more important to be out there rallying your base. This is going to be a turnout election. I think they have the right strategy.
Look, it's okay if he gets a little tired. When a man gets to a certain age, he gets a little tired. If y'all want to swap him out, there's 18 days left. We've done this before, and you can just put in President Vance.
So it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he actually is tired. It's not the most unreasonable thing in the world, but it's not like the presidency gets any easier from here on out.
Yes, but I'm tired, and I'm not running for president. I don't have to be the president after. I think we have to understand that, like, what Abby said is true. You know, he doesn't have enough battery to make it to election day. He doesn't currently have enough battery to make it through an entire speech. He stood on stage this week for 40 minutes listening to his own playlist, and we need to talk about how that's not normal. And I think we also need to talk about the fact that when are we going to stop pretending that this is the real candidate? We're just trying to get him across the finish line. And then to your point, we're going to put in President J.D. Vance, because there is no way that this man who can't make it through an entire speech, who keeps canceling things, is going to be the person that does 4 more years, right? There's no way. We have to get really serious about who the real leader is going to be, and it's going to be the person.
We wouldn't be talking about this.
Interviews.
But we wouldn't be talking about this, Michael, if it weren't for some of the things that have happened in recent weeks. One of which Lee was just talking about, that incident.
Maybe
where
he loves Ave Maria. I don't know.
He does a lot. Two versions of that song.
Wow. Yo, all you can do is laugh at this point, man. The desperation is crazy. The projection is out of control. It really is. These people project so hard. These are the same people, guys. These are the same people who told us that you're a bigot if you worry about Joe Biden's mental fitness, right? You're a bigot if you criticize Joe Biden for taking so many vacations, always being at the beach, even in the middle of natural disasters, right? Joe Biden didn't let anything stop him from taking more vacation days than any president ever, right? This dude was going to sleep at 4 p.m. in the middle of the day. He had to get a nap, right? I mean, his team put out there that, hey, you know, Joe Biden can't do any events after 6 p.m. or something like that. He's done, right? He's sleeping for 12 to 18 hours a day. They told us that we were bigots, right? And we criticized Joe Biden for that and said, hey, that's concerning, okay? And then look what happened to Joe Biden. He got replaced by Kamala Harris, which is the exact same thing that these people are now saying about what's going to happen to Trump. But again, that's what happened to them, right? That's what happened to them. These are the same people who went out of their way to cover up for Joe Biden, who had no concern about Joe Biden and his age and his mental fitness. Now, all of a sudden, they want us to be concerned about Trump and his mental fitness and his age because of what? Because Trump is canceling some unnecessary interviews, right? Some excessive interviews that at this point probably aren't going to move the needle, probably aren't going to make a difference, more so than focusing your time doing other things that actually really are going to help you out in regards to getting turnout, right? This is what they're doing, right? Because what they're saying is not grounded in any type of facts or reality. This idea that Trump is somehow slowing down is crazy to me, because Trump and J.D. Vance, they have done 83 combined interviews since August compared to 45 from Harris and Walz. So again, if the mainstream level media and their criticism were legit, right? Which is that, hey, Trump is doing less interviews. Therefore, less interviews means he's exhausted. Then what does that say about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? Was Kamala Harris exhausted the first day she got into the race? Right? Because according to their logic, right, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz clearly were exhausted the first day they got into the race because it took them a month and a half to do one interview, right? And again, they're criticizing Trump for doing softball interviews. Wait, Kamala has done nothing but softball interviews. She's only done one tough interview. One. Now, Trump has been doing tough interviews since what? 2015? 2015. For almost a decade straight. And these people really believe that the American people are going to fall for this nonsense, right? This trick, this narrative that, oh, well, Trump is canceling interviews and he's not doing any tough interviews. Like, he's not interviewing with Rachel Maddow. This is what they said in response to Kamala Harris going on Bret Baier's show. But see, what they don't realize is that the difference is that, again, Trump has done tough interviews for almost a decade now, right? Kamala Harris has only done one tough interview. I haven't seen Kamala Harris do any other tough interviews for years now, okay? Also, on top of that, Bret Baier is a journalist. Rachel Maddow is not, right? MSNBC is not a news channel, okay? No politician should feel compelled to go MSNBC because MSNBC is not a news channel, okay? I know they like to say Fox News is not a news channel, but when you actually look at Fox News's opinion commentary versus news coverage, they're in line with, again, an actual news channel, right? More so, way more so than MSNBC, which is just primarily opinion. They don't even do original news reporting anymore, right? On that channel, they just don't do it, right? You'll rarely see any type of investigative journalism or any type of like just straight news reporting on MSNBC. You just don't see it on that platform, and it's just straight commentary all day. So again, it's a glorified YouTube channel, right? And I don't blame Trump for not wanting to go on a glorified Democrat Party sponsored YouTube channel, okay? So again, what's happening here, right? What's happening here is that this is desperation. They're trying to trick Trump into taking away resources, and the most valuable resource at this point that he has is time, right? So they want him to use his time doing interviews that they feel like are going to hurt him, which they won't, by the way, right? They're not actually going to hurt him. They want him to use his time doing things like that more so than doing things that are actually really going to fire up his base, right? Which is to do more of these campaign events. Now, these people who get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to be wrong, right, clearly do not understand there's a difference between where Kamala Harris is right now and where President Trump is right now, right? Because the theory from them is that, well, Trump needs to get out and do more interviews. Well, they want him to do more interviews, again, because they want him to waste his time doing something that's not going to help him. But they also believe that him doing more interviews, particularly tough interviews, will hurt him. That's also a bad assumption, right? Because, again, there's nothing that can be said about Trump that hasn't already been said about Trump, okay? So they want him to do more interviews so that Trump can say something that they believe is going to hurt him. And most importantly, take away attention from Kamala Harris, who is bombing all of her interviews. However, again, there's nothing that Trump can say that actually will hurt him. There's no criticisms that can be made about Trump that will hurt him because they've said everything they can say about the guy. I mean, they've essentially called him Hitler, the Antichrist. He's a threat to democracy. The world will end. They've said everything about Trump, okay? And they've said these things for 8 years straight, so it doesn't work anymore, right? So they're operating based off a false assumption that if Trump does more interviews, then he is going to hurt himself, right? Not going to happen, okay? So really at this point, doing more interviews from Trump's perspective is not important. However, for Kamala Harris, it is important because people need to know more about her, right? Trump is a known commodity. Everybody knows who Trump is. We know what we got out of him the first 4 years. Kamala is the one that actually needs to answer more questions. The problem with Kamala Harris is that she's not talented enough to actually answer questions in a way that instills confidence in the American people that she can actually do the job. And that's what these people don't understand. At some point, they might as well just admit that Kamala Harris is not good, right? Which is what Joe Biden told Obama. Okay, she's not as strong as me, which means she's terrible, okay? Because Joe Biden was weak as hell. So if Kamala is weaker than Joe Biden, which Obama agreed to, right, by the way, okay, then, again, what does that say about Kamala Harris? She's very weak. And instead of just admitting the truth and waving the white flag and saying that, yeah, Kamala Harris is weak and Trump derangement is not going to work, no, what they do is that they just continue to peddle these wild conspiracies from the Kamala campaign from the Democrat Party about Trump being exhausted and he's going to be replaced with J.D. Vance and just all types of nonsense. It's just like, not only is this desperation, but also it's just sheer hypocrisy. Because Kamala Harris literally started her campaign with a Meg Thee Stallion twerk rally, right? These are the same people that are criticizing Trump for listening to music during one of his rallies. But yet they had nothing to say about Kamala Harris having a female rapper shake her ass, twerk, doing a rally, right? Where she talked for 15 minutes and left, gave no substance whatsoever, right? They were celebrating this. They were celebrating Kamala Harris for doing no interviews for a whole month straight, and just doing rallies, again, where she would say nothing and then leave, right? Nothing of substance. Refusing to do interviews, dodging any type of tough interviews. And these people were celebrating it, okay? They weren't out here saying, oh, well, is Kamala Harris exhausted? Is she mentally fit enough to be in office, right? Clearly, she's running out of steam. She's having Meg Thee Stallion do filler for her rallies, right? They didn't say that. They didn't say that at all. But now all of a sudden they see Trump, who again still is doing interviews. He's still doing tough interviews too, by the way. That's why this criticism is so wild to me. It's like he did the Bloomberg interview, which is what Chris Haynes brought up in his criticism of Trump, which is that he's exhausted and he's doing softball interviews. But he literally showed Trump doing a hard interview, doing that same segment, which he's criticizing Trump for not doing hard interviews, right? And being exhausted. It's funny how that works. Also, on top of that, Trump did the Al Smith dinner, and then he woke up the next day after staying up late at night and went on Fox and Friends early in the morning. And I was shocked by that, right? I was telling my friends, I was like, yo, Trump stayed up to what, 11, 12 o'clock at night as a 70-some-year-old man, and then he got up at probably 5:30, 6 a.m. and then got fully dressed and went on Fox News. I mean, me personally, I feel like I would have had a hard time doing that, right? I would have struggled doing that. But Trump did it. I'm like, how does this man have so much energy at 78 years old? It's wild to me. It's wild. So again, this is what I'm talking about. Like, people can see that what the mainstream liberal media is saying is just wrong, right? You can look at the numbers and you can see it's wrong. You can look at what he's actually doing, his actions, and see that, yeah, you guys are just wrong, right? You're just making things up. And I just do not think that these same outlets who got it entirely wrong on Joe Biden, right? They were just totally wrong on Joe Biden. Embarrassingly wrong. Okay, a lot of these people should have been fired. Okay, in a sane world, all of these people should have lost their jobs when it comes to their judgment of Joe Biden. The same people who judge Joe Biden wrong, I'm sorry if I don't believe these same people when it comes to their judgment of Trump, right? I just don't think these people have any room to be judging anybody's mental or physical fitness for office. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.